What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I have a good one for you, and it's really a good one because of the price. And in this case the performance actually matches the price, and I don't mean that the performance is low. What I mean is that the price is excellent and the performance is excellent. This is my review of the PUMA Velocity Nitro 4. Let's get into it. Hi guys, thanks for sitting through that intro. Now guys, when I say that this shoe is a good price, I am not joking. The PUMA Velocity Nitro 4 will only cost you $140. And in a world where we have plus $200 shoes, $140 is a refreshing price to see. Now, the Velocity Nitro 4 does have 36 in the heel, 26 in the forefoot, and that's a 10mm drop. PUMA claims that in a US men's size 9, the Velocity Nitro 4 will tip the scale at 8.6 ounces or 245 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 13, it'll tip the scale at 9.8 ounces or 279 grams. So right off the bat, when I see a shoe that is under 300 grams in my size, I'm automatically thinking that's a pretty light shoe. Now look, I know for a lot of you that's crazy. 300 grams is not a light shoe, but when you've got feet my size, you get used to different things. So when I see a shoe under 300 grams, I am happy. I know it's going to feel good. I know it's going to feel wispy on my feet. The Velocity Nitro 4 is no exception. Now, PUMA has made some big changes over the Velocity Nitro 3 last year, which I liked, but I really wasn't crazy about. And the first thing that they have done to update this shoe is give it a new upper. Now, PUMA is calling it a premium engineered knit material, but basically it is your run-of-the-mill engineered mesh, but it is reinforced with power tape. Now, the difference, in my opinion, between the Velocity Nitro 3 and the Velocity Nitro 4 is that the shoe fits a little tighter and it is a little more breathable. And it does seem very breathable on this front part right here, which really, when I'm running, that's the only part that I want it to be breathable in. You know, I'm not going to be feeling the wind in my heel. And with that, it did seem fairly breathable. Now, I have been testing these shoes in the Florida summer, so in all honesty, you know, it's pretty toasty out here. So no matter how breathable a shoe is, I am going to be sweating and my shoes are going to be getting wet. With that said, the Velocity Nitro 4 didn't seem to be making my feet any more warm, so that's a good thing. But that's the upper, you know, the new premium upper. Let's start at the top and work our way down. And if I hold that up for you, remember, this is a daily trainer, and we do have a daily trainer amount of padding around this heel collar, which I'm actually surprised at because the weight is so low. You know, I mean, relatively low. But PUMA has included a lot of padding around this heel collar. This is an area I think they can probably reduce the weight just a little bit. I think we can bring down that padding without actually reducing any of the cushioning, but it works. It was very comfortable to put my foot in. Now the heel counter is super rigid, as we would expect with the daily trainer. We do have this kind of flare at the back that you can grip if you wanted any help putting the shoe on. And probably my favorite thing about the upper of the Velocity Nitro 4 is the tongue. If every shoe could have a tongue like this, I would probably be happy, especially in daily trainers where we tend to overdo it with the stuffing. This is a very thin, almost race day-esque tongue, although it's not paper thin. There is a nice bit of padding on the middle, right where it has that Velocity 4 written here. So that is going to protect the top of your foot from the laces biting into it, and then every other part of the tongue is just light and breathable. Now, the tongue is gusseted on both sides. There is no lace loop in the middle, but you know, it's really not needed if we have a gusseted tongue. And the laces. Yeah, the laces are, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say too much about them other than they never came untied, which, as you know, is the only thing I want my laces to do or not do. And then there are the overlays, and the Velocity Nitro 4 actually has a lot of overlays. I mean, I think this is a fairly good looking shoe. I do like the styling, but there are a lot of overlays. We got the branding here on the lateral and the medial side. We got some overlays here along the heel. Of course, the underlay coming around the toe box. Then it looks like we have some reflective material here on the toe box. And then we've got a fairly heavy reinforcement coming along the eyelet chain with a nice suede bit right at the top for your top two eyelets. There is that extra eyelet at the top, so if you did need to do the lace lock method in order to prevent any heel slip, you certainly can. However, I'm willing to bet not a lot of people are going to be getting a heel slip in the Velocity Nitro 4. Oh, one more thing. There is a removable sock liner, just in case you wanted to take that out and replace it with something custom. Oh, I bet most people don't do that. The only time I've taken out the sock liner is when I want to test a different sock liner. But most of the time, because I'm testing the shoes, I want to know how that sock liner feels. And then you know how it goes. You get used to it and you never take it out. Let's move down to probably the biggest change that PUMA has made this year with the Velocity Nitro 4, and that's the midsole. And it's the biggest change because we are using 100% nitro foam. Now, cast your memory back to the Velocity Nitro 3, and you'll remember it did include nitro foam on the top, but then we had that layer of pro foam on the bottom. And it seems like a lot of brands do this dual density setup with the softer foam on the top, the firmer foam on the bottom, just to create a lot of stability. The good folks over at PUMA have decided that no, it doesn't need to be stabilized with pro foam. what the people want is all nitro foam, and that is what we have. Now look, this nitro foam has been tweaked, and I mean tweaked from some of the other nitro foam. And the nitro foam in the Velocity Nitro 4 sits squarely in the center lane. It is not too soft, it is not too firm. It is right in the center, in the Goldilocks zone. So I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. It's going to be soft enough where it's not going to beat you up on the long run. It's going to be firm enough for, you know, for those times when you want to pick up the pace. Now, I think maybe I was expecting a little bit of a softer ride, so my first impressions taking it out was maybe it's a little on the firm side, but no. After all my testing in the Velocity Nitro 3, I can say that it is neither firm nor soft. It is spot on. And I know spot on is going to be different for each of us, but for me, it is spot on. I think that is really where the beauty lies with this shoe. But hold on, we'll get to the ride and the use in just a second. Let's come down to the outsole. Look at this. PUMA grip, the grippiest grip on the planet. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I do know that when we look at some of the competitors, the PUMA grip is going to be the grippiest of the lot. And look, another good thing is that, remember, $140, excellent price for this shoe, and this shoe is going to be very resilient. And of course, I'm talking about the PUMA grip, but also with the upper, there's just a lot going on there, especially with the PUMA grip, because we have a good amount of PUMA grip, and usually where I see wear is at my lateral heel right here. And of course, I can see a little bit of scuffing here on my lateral heel edge, but that's not surprising. Now look, you probably remember that I have been injured for a couple of months. I took a couple of months off of running just because I had an injury, and now I'm slowly building back. But I did have the Velocity Nitro 4 before I got injured, so I had already started running in them for my injury, and now I have reintroduced them for my getting back into it type of runs. So I've run quite a bit in the Velocity Nitro 4. On my forefoot, I'm not seeing any wear at all. Guys, I'm going to go out on a ledge and tell you that I think the Velocity Nitro 4 are going to last above average. So when I say that, I'm thinking over 400 miles. Do I think 500 miles? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you would take these to 500 miles and still have plenty of outsole rubber and no degradation to the upper. And I think the Nitro foam is probably resilient enough to go that distance too. Let's just do a flexibility test. Yeah, actually fairly flexible. Nice. Okay, so this is a daily trainer. I know, I keep saying it, but the beauty is how many runs you could do in this shoe, because what it comes down to is that I really think that the Velocity Nitro 4 is the type of shoe that you could just buy if you wanted one pair of shoes. And if we look at other daily trainers, think of something like the Brooks Ghost. I know they raised the price of the Brooks Ghost this year. That's $150, but this is not in the same ballpark as the Brooks Ghost. This is a lot lighter, a lot more nimble, and it does provide like the same protection. So for me, because this is a daily trainer, I know how many times am I going to throw that in? Probably at least once more. I'm going to be using this shoe for those recovery runs, those easy runs, those long runs. And yes, that 36-26 is going to be enough cushioning to run long in this shoe. But look, this Nitro foam is responsive enough where when I want to pick up the pace, so when I'm doing strides, intervals, it's going to pick up the pace and it's going to feel good doing it. Now, as usual, this is a daily trainer. I told you I'd get it in one more time. So it's not going to be ideal for race day. And by saying it's not ideal, what I mean is there are better options out there. PUMA makes a lot of fast shoes. But when you do want to put the power into these shoes, they will accept it and they will run fast. Okay, but look, $140 is a good price, but it's a fairly competitive price point, and there are a lot of competitors out there. And if you are looking at picking up a pair of the Velocity Nitro 4, you may also be looking at the New Balance Rebel V5. Now look, yeah, the Rebel V5 also costs $140. It has 35/29 for a 6mm drop, and in my size tips the scale at 263 grams. So the Rebel V5 is 16 grams less than the Velocity Nitro 4. And look, here's the thing. I think maybe the Rebel V5 is going to be the faster of the two shoes, okay? It's a little lighter. The upper is a little thinner, a little more wispy. The Velocity Nitro 4 is going to be 100 times more resilient than the Rebel V5. Look, if you're looking to go out and run short and fast workouts, yeah, the Rebel V5 is probably the ticket. If you're looking for that shoe to do a little bit of everything, go with the Velocity Nitro 4. Remember, you've all heard the stories about how the fuel cell foam in the Rebel V5 just doesn't respond as well after not many miles. Okay, next up, I think you'll probably also be looking at the Asics Nova Blast 5. This is a really good comparison. In fact, if I hold it up, you can see both of these shoes have a lot of padding around the heel collar. Now, the Nova Blast 5 has a little more stack height. We have 41.5 in the heel, 33.5 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. And in my size, the Nova Blast 5 tips the scale at 303 grams. So that means it weighs 24 grams more than the Velocity Nitro 4. And this is a pretty good competitor. In fact, I'd say that the only reason that you would buy one of these or the other is because you like how one or the other looks. I will probably say that just looking at the Velocity Nitro 4, it's going to stand up to a lot more punishment than the Nova Blast 5. Just feeling the upper, feeling the shoe, the PUMA seems to be just a little better made than the Nova Blast 5, but you know, maybe that's just me. Okay, finally, I think you're also going to be checking out the Salomon Aero Blaze 3. Again, this is a really solid competitor. Got a lot of padding around that heel collar, and we have a similar stack. We have 35 in the heel, 27 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. Again, it'll cost you $140, very well priced. But get this, the Aero Blaze 3 weighs in at my size at 260 grams. So it weighs 19 grams less than my size in the PUMA Velocity Nitro 4. So if weight is your only concern, maybe the Aero Blaze 3 is your option. But again, durability, if I hold up the bottom, PUMA has a lot more rubber on the bottom. Now, this is rubber here in the middle, but it's just not as thick as the PUMA grip on the Velocity Nitro 4. So guys, what do you think? For $140, do you think that the Velocity Nitro 4 is a good deal? In fact, don't bother write that in the comments because I know it is. It's a phenomenal deal. I think it's going to work for a lot of people, unless you have wide feet, because the PUMA Velocity Nitro 4 is a fairly narrow shoe. You can see it's a bit pointy down here at the end. Now, it wasn't pointy enough to bother me. I didn't feel my little toe here on the edge, which is where I usually feel it if the shoe is too narrow for me. But the shoe fits me very well and I have narrow feet. So I think for those of you with wide feet, yeah, I would probably steer clear of this. But for everyone else, $140 represents an incredible value for the Velocity Nitro 4. So guys, I do want to hear from you though. Are you thinking of picking up a pair of the Velocity Nitro 4? What has been your favorite PUMA shoe this year? Definitely drop a comment and let me know. But for now, it's Matt V. This has been my review of the PUMA Velocity Nitro 4. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.